Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Krishna, Krishna, Hari, Hari, Hari. Ram, Ram, Hari, Hari, Krishna, Krishna, Hari, 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 Ram, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, 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 Ram, 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 Hari, 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 Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Krishna, Krishna, Hari, 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 Krishna, Krishna, Hari, 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 Ram, Hari, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Ram, Hari, 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 Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Krishna, Hari, Ram, 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 Hari, Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Ram, Ram, Hari, 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 Ram, 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 Jabi, Hari, Gopi Jana Balava, Giribharata, Yashodanandana, Rajanaranjana, Yamuna Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, Giribharata Hari, Yashodananda, Yamunatira Vanachari, Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Grantaraj Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita Ki. Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Madan Ki. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Gopremanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri. Thank you for singing. Very nice. Who will sing Lakshmi Nath Prabhu? Want to sing Jai Radha Madhava tomorrow? Okay. Great. Om Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnupada Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesharne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So welcome devotees to our 54th evening program. We're in the second part and the second chapter, and the devotional scriptures are explaining, well, the glory of pure devotional service. They've been explaining some attempt for liberation, and now, so they've been explaining that to Gopakumar, who's of course the central character, could say hero in all of this, on Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, and now they're coming to the step of their glorification and description. There's still a way, actually, but they're going to start the structure of the universe. So let's see how it goes. We're beginning with verse 221. So this is the devotional scriptures speaking to Gopakumar. May Krishna protect you. His opulent power is eternal and eternal are his infinite varieties, and his beauty and his worship and his companionship with his servant. Personal form of the eternal absolute who lives in the eternal world. So, of course, they've been, when this whole discussion based on the scriptures personified, when it started, and certain scriptures advocate impersonal liberation. In that regard were explained. Then there was a second group of scriptures who they're also advocating liberation in the impersonal or somewhat impersonal sense, but through devotional service. And I didn't mention the other day when we were actually reading those verses, but an interesting point, it's just an interesting little point, is that in some Vaishnav schools, particularly the followers of Ramanujacharya, Vishisht Advaita. Our philosophy is called, what's it called? Achintya Bheda, which means simultaneous but inconceivable oneness and difference. But Ramanuja, his philosophy is called Vishishta Advaita, which basically translates, well, Advaita, if you've read enough of Prabhupada's books, you would all. Dvaita means two. So Dvaita means a philosophy which recognizes two, like actually Madhvacharya's philosophy of the two. But now this Ramanujacharya, his philosophy is Vishisht Advaita. Advaita means not two, one. So it's a monistic philosophy. A monistic philosophy saying that, basically saying, Advaita, but Vishisht implies it's something like concrete. Concrete monism is what it's often translated as. And concrete monism means you have some concrete, like a beam, like a beam sticking across from one wall to the other. It's concrete. But if you cut into the concrete, you'll see there's sand there are rocks, pebbles, some bigger rocks are there. So it's one thing, it's the concrete beam, it's just, you could say one thing. You look more closely, then you see there is variegatedness within the one. Whereas in Abed philosophy, we say there is oneness, but there is also difference. Yeah. So we're one with Krishna in quality. Satchitananda. He's eternal, we're eternal. He's conscious, we're conscious. He's blissful, we're blissful. So there's oneness there. But in many ways, really, but particularly in size. He is unlimited, and we are, as we see ourselves, pretty small. The soul is 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. Right, so in other words, Ramanujacharya taught that we are part of God in the sense that God is like the concrete beam, concrete monism. He's like the concrete, something like that. But that's God. But when you look inside, you see, there's Arjunacharya inside. It's Advaita, that we are God, or we are parts of God. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, we see ourselves as being the energies of God, one with different in quantity. Am I confusing you? Have I confused you? Success. Anyway, that's what it is, like it or not, or not. All right, so there you go. So the devotional scriptures are saying, well, hang on, no, back to just that, going back. So Ramanujacharya is teaching that we should become liberated and sort of merge with, not exactly Krishna, but kind of merge, and it's the closest of the four main philosophies. It's the So they're into liberation, but through devotional service. The goal is liberation. The means is devotional service. In Krishna consciousness, the goal is in this sense. The goal is devotional service. And the means is devotional service. Our philosophy. The goal is liberation, the means is devotional service. So, there we were. Okay, 222. In this very gentle, intelligent, find no use for harsh and thorn-like logic. Means, sort of breaking your head to try to understand all sorts of complex ideas, straining your to try to understand big ideas about what is God with your little brain. So this they refer to here as harsh and thorn-like logic. Of course, Krishna consciousness has logic, but it's not like that. Just like you've got to strain your... Still, so this is the scriptures speaking, the Bhagavatam particularly, still we have spoken this discourse to induce those to impersonal liberation to begin devotional service. We want to induce those people who are attached to liberation. We want to induce them to take up devotional service. And neophyte devotees of the Lord. You know who that is? Do you know who that is? The neophyte devotees? Us. You're right. Listen carefully. We'll get great pleasure from these explanations. If you have indeed read the pettiness of liberation and want to attain the treasure of firm faith and pure devotion, then simply worship your transcendental mantra. So they know about Gopikumar's mantra. And then please hear this great secret, which is pleasing to the heart. So, wow, what is this great secret which is pleasing to the heart? Oh my gosh, what's it going to be? Outside the egg of the universe, which extends for 500 million yojanas, are 8 covering shells, each 10 times thicker than the one before. Maybe that's not quite what you expected. In the egg of the inside part, where we are, the open part, they say, the scriptures say, it's 500. A yojana is 8 miles, plus or minus. Or you could say what? Roughly 12 kilometers. Just to keep it in round figures. 100 million times 12. 6 billion. You're right. You don't have to get your calculator. No, you got it. 6 billion. It's 6 meters wide. No wonder they have difficulty, sort of trying to off it. So that's the inside. And then sort of encasing that are 8 covering shells, each 10 times thicker than the one before. So 8 covering shells, well, starting anyway, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, false ego. So each one more. First is earth. And the earth covering, you've got, so this is where we are, the inner, where we're living, part of the universe. And the first covering earth, 10 times thicker than this is wide. The 6 billion, right? So it's 60 billion kilometers, the earth covering. Earth, water, then the water is 10 times 600 billion. And each one is progressively 10 times before. So just consider this. If, just, scale, if the inside for the cell is 1 millimeter, then the earth covering is 10 times more, centimeter. Then the height is 10 centimeters. Then the air is 100 centimeters, is 1 meter. That's if the is 1 millimeter. Earth, water, where were we? Earth, water, fire. Was that air? 10 centimeter, earth, water, fire. That was fire. Then air is 10 meters. Air. Ether is 100 meters. Mind is 1 kilometer. Mind. Intelligence is 10 kilometers. False ego is 100 kilometers thick. Do you think I got it right? I think so. I think that's right. So just for the sake of scale, if the inside is 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, something like that, it's just, you know what 1 millimeter is like. Then the final layer is, what did I say, 100 kilometers? Think about it. Take that home with you and consider it. But wow. But actually, the inside is not 1 millimeter. It's 6 billion kilometers. We'll leave that with you if you want to go through some process of mathematical calculation. By crossing beyond those shells, one reaches the abode of Lord Mahakala, the imperishable abode where material existence disappears. It is called Mahakalapur because there all material causes and effects are non-existent. Yeah, so you go outside the shell of the universe, this, incredibly thick and complex shell covering, the center where we're living. Then outside the shell, and outside the shells of the many universes, is the abode of Lord Mahakala. And there, in that area which is outside the material universes, it's a kind of in-between area. And there, because it's not exactly part of the material world, the material world is within the universes. So because it's kind of material causes and effects, they're non-existent there. Material existence disappears there. And before you know, shortly, you're in the spiritual world. Lord Mahakala's personality cannot be described, but Vajas somehow describe him. He appears with form or without, in accord with the various mentalities of his worshippers. Krishna, Krishna. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. The Lord's servants whose desires bring them to Mahakalapur see him there in their hearts as the concentrated form of the absolute truth. So you might wonder, why would the Vaishnavas want there? This, they want to go back to Godhead. But here now they're going to this kind of extraordinary in-between abode, Mahakalapur, to see Lord. So why do they bother? It is only because they want to see the Lord there as Brahman in person. And so, by the potency of your transcendental mantra, there you will directly achieve the complete fulfillment of your long cherished desires. So, the Bhakti scriptures are encouraging Gopakumar to chant his mantra and go to that place. Because we're on Brahmaloka. This is like the next step beyond Brahmaloka. Next step, because Brahmaloka is in the material world, definitely. But Mahakala is basically outside. Basically. Not so much like Vaikuntha, but you cannot say that you're in the material world when you're there. So that's a kind of unusual instruction or suggestion that they're giving Gopakumar. So then in verse 230 they say, if you do not wish to spend a long time here, then in Sri Mathura. Yeah. In other words, if you don't want to bother with Mahakalapur, just go back to Vrindavan. Sri Gopakumar said, because now he's speaking to the Mathura Brahmin again, across the Yamuna from Keshi Ghat, Sri Gopakumar said, Mathura Brahmin, these words of the scriptures greatly strengthened my devotion for the Supreme Lord, and this thought was born in my heart. This is the thought. Here I have gained in person as my own Father, the Lord whose devotional service is so great. Why indeed should I abandon to go elsewhere? So Gopakumar, he was basically just ignorant. He really didn't know much at all. Practically nothing in terms of scriptural information and spiritual life and anything. But now he's in Brahmaloka. And he's Lord Brahma. And he is associating with Lord, not Mahakala, but Lord Maha, who's been acting as a father towards him and treating Gopakumar as a son. So Gopakumar is thinking, wait a minute, do I really want to go to these places? Why don't I just stay here and associate with the Lord who's like my Father? When my mind was thus perturbed, that Supreme Lord himself, the reservoir of mercy, who knows what takes place in everyone's heart, that means you too. And me. Whoa, watch out. So yeah, that Lord, the reservoir of mercy, who knows what takes place in their heart, visited me and spoke. So this is Lord Mahapurusha in Brahmaloka. So he knows what's going on. And he knows that Gopakumar is, you could say, conflicted. Should I go to this Mahakalapur? Should Vrindavan? Should I just stay here? What should I do? So the blessed Lord said, go to Mathura, to your dearest pasturing grounds, to the land adorned with many places of my varied supreme pastimes. So there you go. That's the instruction. Go to Mathura, go to Vraja. It's greater than Brahmaloka. Though a long time has passed since Lord Brahma himself prayed for birth as a blade of grass in Vraja, that land now appears the same as then. This is still the scriptures speaking. It's been a long time since the Brahma Vimohana Leela. But still, when you go there, you'll see it's just the same. Hasn't changed. There you will again meet your Guru, most dear to me. And by his mercy, you will be empowered to understand everything in full. Of course, we all know, hopefully we all know, that Gopakumar has now had three meetings. In each meeting, he's gone deeper into the mantra, the understanding of the mantra. But still, he has not got instruction how to chant it. He's just carrying on in his own way, chanting. But now he's going to meet the Guru for the fourth time and get more. Indeed. Okay. Yeah, so the scriptures. Indeed. Oh, no, this is the Lord. This is Mahapurusha. Indeed, you will soon come to see me in person in Mahakalapur. There you will attain extreme bliss and chant your heart. So it's a bit confusing that go to Mathura, and then a few verses later, go to Mahakalapur. Anyway, it's a step forward to go to Mahakalapur and see Lord Mahakala. It's a step forward. So the Lord continues speaking. By the power of my mercy, you will wander about freely and enter into hundreds of amazing wonders. Because that's, anyway, yeah. After some time, dear son, all your ambitions will be satisfied, and you will play as you like in Vrindavan. So, yeah, got to go to Mahakalapur en route to Vrindavan. And he'll get the direct association of Madan Gopal in Goloka Vrindavan. Sri Gopakumar said, thus, overcome with both joy and sorrow at the Lord's command, by the power of my mind, I at once came to this beautiful Vrindavan. Must admit, I'm not 100% clear what the idea is. You'll see me in Mahakalapur. Through going to Vrindavan, somehow or other there's going to be some revelation about Lord Mahakala. Devotees of the Lord, would you believe? We have just finished the second chapter of the second part. By the God, but devotees, don't go away. We will continue into chapter 3. We're really making progress here, which is called, I see. Anyway, yeah, chapter 3. Bhajan, worship. So, Sri Gopakumar said, when I came from Brahmaloka to this earth, I saw, was there even a hint of the way things had been before? Earth looked different. Planet Earth looked different because time, our standards. Just like when Maharaj Revata, was it Revata anyway? The father of Revati, who is the consort of Lord Balaram. He was a king on this planet, and he wanted a suitable husband for his daughter Revati, who was just extremely, extremely qualified in all ways. So he didn't think any of the local boys were up to the standard. So he thought, let's go to Brahmaloka and ask Lord Brahma, give help us to find a boy who really is qualified. So they went to Brahmaloka, Revati and the father. They went to Brahmaloka to ask Lord Brahma for this help. Lord Brahma was busy watching a dance for half an hour. He was watching. And so after half an hour, he spoke to them and the father explained. And the father was asking, so which of these boys is suitable? And Lord Brahma just laughed and said, they all died. On your earthly planet's time, they died millions of years ago. So, sorry. But then he said, actually, if you go find one very most qualified young man, and he can become, that was Lord Balaram. So she became the wife of Balaram. Okay, so only Sri Mathura district looked just as it had, with the same forest, mountains, and rivers, the same moving creatures. Remembering the Supreme Lord's order, I wandered throughout Vrindavan. When I entered this very same grove where he's instructing the Mathura Brahmin across the Yamuna from Keshi Ghat, when I entered, I saw the spiritual master, unconscious in a trance of ecstatic love. Well, that's what the Lord had told him, Lord Mahapurusha. you'll find your spiritual master. He's endeavored sage back to normal. And when he saw me bowing down before me, he embraced me, at once understanding the desire in my heart. Sure. So he did such thing. But with great endeavor, he brought him back to external consciousness. Sanatana Goswami says, by doing such things as sprinkling him with water, he brought him back to external consciousness. I was reading last night in Giriraj Maharaj's book that they're in the just stages. They're in the process of building the temple in Bombay, but they've still got a long way to go. And there were at that time a number of small blocks of flats, like 2-story, 3-story blocks of flats. And in those flats there were just some ordinary people living, but some of them became devotees. So there was one family who they basically became devotees, and the children, it was Diwali night. I don't know if any of you have ever been in India on Diwali night. Anyway, it's not that dramatic, but a lot of fireworks. Oh my gosh. So many fireworks. So the children, they're like, school age, 8, 9, 10 or something. And when you're that age, I don't know about you, but I was into fireworks. Oh boy. So the children were letting off the fireworks. It's like 9 o'clock at night. And the devotees wanted to take. So some of the ladies, the children were down just directly beneath their windows of the ladies' ashram, letting off these fireworks. I remember one time we were in Jaipur on Diwali night, and just outside, just on the street, outside place where we were staying. And he spent the whole night, at least till midnight, from like 7, 8 o'clock, with a candle, which was lit, and single crackers, just single ones. Just light one, light another one, bang. Light the next one, throw it, bang. Like 4 hours, non-stop. No kidding. So these children, they were doing something like that. So you know what the ladies did? Threw buckets of water on them from up above. And these girls, young girls, went and woke up Prabhupada. But they went to complain to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said they could continue till 10, but then they had to stop. So he sprinkled his guru with water. You should probably be careful about doing things like that. His guru bathed, and then he taught me various rules for worshipping and meditating on the mantra he had given. Aha. So now Gopakumar is getting more clear instruction. Some of these instructions he spoke, and others he gave me through gestures. Wow. Amazing. Maybe like mudras, appropriate hand gestures. He then said, because you are very dear to me, I have now given you everything I possess. By the power of this mantra, you will understand and attain everything on your own. Yeah. So let me just read the purport here. We should not doubt that the Guru, simply by a few words and gestures, could teach Gopakumar everything there was to know. Though true spiritual knowledge cannot be achieved merely by collecting information, it can be gained by the mercy of one's spiritual master, which awakens transcendental knowledge naturally in one's heart. As the Guru indicates here, Gopakumar of the mantra will comprehend everything, not only what he has just learned, but also things yet to be learned. Verse 7, with great joy I fell at his feet, and then all at once he was gone. He had gone elsewhere. I tried hard to calm my mind, which was pained by, and I referred to chant my mantra as instructed. And there's a little comment here, it's nice. Chanting of a mantra that worships the Supreme Lord should result in liberation, even if the chanting is done irregularly. Still, if one wants to reach liberation easily without delay, one should chant according to the rules and regulations given by the Spirit. I then saw my body change into a form transcendental to the 5 material elements. And as I traveled upward, breaking through the sphere of the sun, I saw all the planetary systems. I saw that these planets, tainted by many faults, adorned with mere reflections of but products of illusion, no better than what one sees in a flight of fancy or a dream. Yeah, so the attractions that you see in a dream, either if you're sort of consciously just sort of thinking about something, or when you're actually asleep, those attractions essentially exist only in your mind. And even, it says here, even that private existence is brief. That one sees while awake is shared and persistent. All the worlds are dreamlike shadows of spiritual reality. Their happiness, but a shadow of real happiness. Wow, that's amazing. In the material universe, all the worlds are dreamlike shadows of spiritual reality. Their happiness, but a shadow of real happiness. So, one more verse. The planets I had earlier attained one by one over a long period of time, I now crossed in the blink of an eye, as if by the power of my mind alone. Yeah, you know, Loka, Swarga. Then he went what? Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapa Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. It took some time, and all sorts of things happened on the way. Now, he's just zipping past them in the blink of an eye, just gone. Just by the power, apparently, the power of the mind. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrita ki jai. Srila Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Hare Krishna. See you all tomorrow.